Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ramadan Kareem, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second Invest Saudi webinar. My name is Abdurrahman Al-Ambar from the Investor Business Solution Department at the Ministry of Investment. And we are here today to learn more about the stimulus and economic relief packages and how we can help and guide investors and the private sector to navigate through these. Our theme today is focusing on human capital incentive. So, before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all our lovely viewers and listeners for tuning in, and of course, all our respective government partners for taking part in this webinar. So, as a breakdown, we have a lovely lineup for you today. So, Mr. Ibrahim Al-Alayan from the General Organization Social Insurance, who is Inspection and Collection Acting General Manager. We have also Mr. Ahmed Al-Jayish from the Human Resources Development Fund, who is the Deputy Director General for Employment Support, and Mr. Ahmed Al-Shargi from Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development, who is the Deputy Assistant for Labor Policies. And last but not least, Mr. Sami Fallaj from the Technical and Vocational Training Corporation, which is also known as TVTC, who is the General Manager for Private Training. We move on to the stimulus packages and economic relief overview segment presented by yours truly. However, before we begin, I would like to say that we at the Ministry of Investment are at the front lines of defense and voice of the private sector by supporting them, either by facilitating, communicating, or even to escalate to higher levels of authorities to ensure the continuity and welfare of businesses and investments. So there are incentives, a whopping over 170 billion Saudi riyals and it varies from financial to non-financial, including exemptions to support the private sector, where an elite task force at the Ministry of Investment was established with the support of our esteemed liaisons throughout to guide and attend to the private sector and gain access, whether it's information, issues, obstacles, and the incentives that are available. So, Saudi Arabia was one of the leading countries to introduce stimulus packages to support the private sector, especially small and medium-sized enterprises during the shutdown of businesses during the corona pandemic. However, the health of its citizens comes first and foremost, and the government has taken precautionary and strong measures to protect the citizens and residents in the kingdom, and to ensure the availability of immediate financial and health resources, which will guarantee that all direct preventive measures are taken to limit the spread of the coronavirus. So let me begin by saying that Saudi Arabia is no stranger to incentives or initiatives when it comes to supporting the private sector. So I'm going to just take a little step back and talk about, if you will, pre-corona times, where we have a total of 237 incentives. We're talking over 60 entities, and it's financial and non-financial incentives. And it's across the board. We have covered from the chemical sector, information and technology, mining, emerging sectors, healthcare, industrial, you name it, and we are gonna make sure to cover it. So the mechanism of how we deal with any inquiries usually at the ministry when it comes to, let's say, incentives, we receive your inquiry, we direct you and point you to the right direction to our esteemed liaisons around the governmental entities. And let's say, God forbid, things are not clear enough or things are not going as smooth as possible, we make sure that we align with our brothers and sisters at the governmental entities, and we communicate and we follow up and we make sure you're on your way and you are a happy investor here in the kingdom. So now let's begin with our COVID-19 incentives in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So for us, when it came to allocating funds, 177 billion Saudi riyals was allocated to support the private sector. So the Minister of Finance and Acting Minister of the Economy, His Excellency Mr. Mohammed Al Jad'an, confirmed that the Kingdom's government has reached advanced stages of implementing their plans under the Kingdom's Vision 2030, and it has continued to control their public finances, controlling fiscal deficits, and achieving their goals by end of 2019. And at the same time, it achieves its goals to increase non-oil revenues, which increased by 13% end of 2019. And this came during the virtual press conference, which was held about the most important economic developments in light of the implications to Corona-19. So we offer a wide range of incentives. So when we're talking loan programs, we're talking custom duty exemptions, employment funding, property solutions, governmental procurement laws, ecosystem stimulus packages for small and medium enterprises. So when it came to the 177 billion, it was split into two, if you will, sides. So 130 billion for the private sector support, and then a 47 billion towards the health sector. And then there was an additional 50 billion Saudi riyals when it came to receivables to expedite payments of the private sector dues. And also here's a really good one, the 30% off electricity bills in commercial, industrial and agriculture sectors for April, May with possible extensions. And another one from the electricity as well, 50% off from the commercial and industrial sectors, April, provided remaining dues are collected in 6 months installments starting from January 2021, with also a possible postponement. Another good mention is the minimum salaries paid to those self-employed passenger transport drivers that stopped from working, and this is being facilitated by the TGA, or the Transport General Authority, and also activation of council ministers' resolution requiring companies where governments own more than 51% of capital to prioritize local content and support SMEs in procurement and tender offers. So when it came to the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, they have postponed payments program worth of 50 billion Saudi riyals to help funding authorities to provide capital to micro, small, and medium enterprises. And we're talking whether it's deferred payments, loan guarantees, and funding for lending. And all this is working, of course, with the help of the mansha'at, the small and medium enterprises, through, of course, your existing banks here, and also through the financial lending companies, which I'm more than happy to share with you after this webinar. There are around 18 or 20 companies that have very competitive pricing to help you also get financing for your project. General Authority for Zakat and Tax, we're talking postponement of payments for VAT, selected goods and tax, Zakat incomes and withholding tax, postponement for selective customs for registered taxpayers, and suspension of fines for late payments of premiums and so forth. Including, we have the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development. There is a long list of incentives that they have, and I'll leave that in the capable hands of our lovely colleague, Mr. Ahmed Al-Shargi. But just to name a few, there is enabling secondment personnel through the Ajir Temporary Employment Program, which reduces the workload and burdens of the affected sectors, and to assist companies operating in these sectors to expected high demand of employees. And there is also a VIP, let's say, service called Al Safwa, which people work around the clock to support you from that aspect. And Mr. Ahmed will go deep dive into his side once his turn is up. And now my segment has been done. Just a quick overview. And now we are going into the segments of our lovely panelists, starting with Mr. Ibrahim Al-Ayyan from the General Organization Social Insurance. Mr. Ibrahim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Abdurrahman. Today I'm going to talk to you about the go-to support for Saudi workers and private sector firms affected by the measures taken to combat the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19. Next slide, please. Important information about the support. The compensation, it's May, June, July of 2020. These represent the salaries for employees of April, May, and June. Compensation rate is up to 60% of the average covered wage for the last 24 months. When I talk about covered wages, in GOSI, we only cover basic and housing. Next slide, please. So, what are the terms for establishment for this to be eligible for this compensation? The contributors and employees have to be enrolled in GOSI before 1st of Jan 2020, and they have to be enrolled under the employment insurance branch, which usually covers only Saudis. Compensation covers up to a number of Saudi workers, or 5 workers, whichever is more. Some establishments are excluded from the support, like establishments in the financial sector, banks, telecom operators, and as well as central supermarkets. Establishments have to commit to resume the payment of the wages for the covered workers after the expiration of the compensation. And establishments have to commit to pay the salaries of the wages of the Saudis and non-Saudis that are not covered by this compensation. Establishments have to have paid the first quarter salaries. Next slide, please. Now we're talking about the employees, who's going to be covered by this compensation. First, they have to be part of the covered establishment, which means they're not banks, they're not telecom operators, and they're not central supermarkets. Employees must be on the job until the compensation or the request of the establishment to have the compensation. Employees must be registered in the unemployment branch before the 1st of Jan, means from December. And employees must be a Saudi citizen, and they have to not have another source of income or owns an establishment, like a single owner. An employee must be under the age of 60. That's all for GOSI. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. That was very, very insightful. And please, for all our viewers tuning in, all the presentation is going to be shared with everyone. And if you have any concerns or any questions, please reach out to the Ministry of Investment or directly to our respective brothers at their governmental sites. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Mr. Ahmed Al-Mujayish from the Human Resources Development Fund, who is the Deputy Director General for Employment Support. Mr. Ahmed, the mic is all yours.
And thank you for watching us right now. I would like to take this opportunity also not just to highlight the program that we are offering right now for this time, also to highlight some that HRDF, Human Resources Development Fund, is taking and performing and offering a lot of programs that enable the private sectors, including training. Now we have online training called Durub, and it can be helped with the private sector. And also we have enablement programs for the women working in the sector. For this presentation, we are focusing in just one program that aiming to support employment, especially that employment happened from July 2019 until now. So this program is to really help the private sector keep the employment that happened the last 9 months, and this is a part of HR main mandate is to support the Saudization in the private sector. Next, please. So if we go to the eligibilities, the beneficiary has to be a Saudi national, age from 18 to 60. He has to be a worker at this establishment and it's not a full-time student, or a civil worker, or an employer for another establishment, or a retired, or has a business registered. Also, the applicant should be a GOSI subscriber and employed since July 2019 or afterwards. Also, the same establishment and the applicant should be registered in the NLG. NLG is the national labor market gateway, which is called Taqat. And here we are just asking the establishment to be there, so we can help them electronically online, and they don't have to visit any branch or to do any paperwork. They can register in the NLG using their Ministry of Human Resources online service to register in the NLG, and then they can go to the employment support program and open a file. Also, the same should be for the employees. So they have to also to be registered in the same NLG. Registrations means that we can verify the NIN number and the personal information through government entities. So they have to register first, then the company can get into the program and add them to the subsidy. Also, also we have a special range that we can cover for this subsidy, which is from 4,000 to 15,000 Riyal. Has to be the salary in GOSI, not below 4,000 and not above 15,000. But for time being, now since 3 days ago, HRDF announced that we reduced the 4,000 to be 3,200. And this is 3,200. It's a special it's a special event, and it will last until 10 of May 2020. So after that, it will go back to normal to 4,000. And also until 10 of May of this month, coming month, all placement happened since July last year will be accepted if it's with the condition, with the eligibilities. And after that, we will start working on the new employment, inshallah. Also, the beneficiaries they shouldn't has used any of HRDF employment support program. So if they had training like Tamhir or Hafiz or Qurra or Wusul or any program, that doesn't prevent. The only prevent programs is the employment support program. Next, please. So the mechanism is it's a 30% of the employee's wage for 24 months. So this is the minimum that we will give, the 30% of the wage. And the minimum accepted salary is 4,000, the maximum is 15,000, and as we said, now it's 3,200 for limited time. Maximum limit for support, a maximum limit can go to 50% or 3,000, whichever is lesser. And why it's 50%? And we said earlier it's 30%, because if there is an employment for a female or for disabled person or for small and medium companies or in rural areas, they will get 10% plus each time. So the subsidy could raise to be 50% of the salary, maximum 3,000 Riyal, which is less. Also, the program will start, as we said, from backdated to July 1st, 2019, and this will end in May 10th as to apply. But those companies who will join us, they will continue for working with them for all of the 24 months. Next, please. Also, we need to highlight that as HRDF, we are supporting all private sector, all establishments, all occupation also are welcome, full-time or telework. Also, the payment or the support is going directly to the establishment. It's not for the individuals. And as we said, there is a 10% plus for women and also for people with disabilities and or employment in SMEs and also in different regions. Next, please. This is just to illustrate what we have said, that 30% as a baseline and can be raised 10% based on female, male, based on people with disabilities or not, based on city size, based on the establishment size. And also we can add later on occupation if there is a special attention to any occupation that we will announce if there is also incentive there. Next, please, I think. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. That was very insightful. And now we're moving along with Mr. Ahmed Al-Shargi from the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development. Mr. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Abdurrahman. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to first start by thanking my colleagues in HRDF and also in GOSI, and basically assure the audience that we are working in a very coordinated ecosystem, also coordinating with our colleagues at the Ministry of Investment to basically look after the interests of business owners as well as employees and help them navigate the challenges of COVID-19. Next, please. So basically, we're going to go through a couple of initiatives that we've launched at the ministry with the help of our colleagues in the ecosystem that is overlooking the human capital in the country. And the first initiative is what we call allowing the secondment of employees via the Agir platform between all commercial sectors. Because we do understand that there are certain sectors that are more affected than other sectors by the pandemic and by the COVID-19 reality. We are allowing through the Agir platform the secondment and the transfer of employees temporarily between the different sectors. This is something that previously we did not have, and mobility used to be within a specific sector. However, today we're allowing it across several sectors. So relationship of one to many. Next, please. The second initiative is what we term the calculation of employment of Saudi nationals immediately within the nitaqat for all entities. And this is basically to encourage the hiring of Saudis and also with immediate effect in the sense of calculating them as part of the Saudization rates of nitaqat. Next, please. The extension of work permits is also a very powerful initiative that we've launched. And here we're basically extending the work permits for workers whose residency has expired between the 18th of March until the 30th of June. And we're granting them a period of 3 months of free extension. And this happens basically automatically. Next. Another important initiative is the regulation of the contractual relationship between the employer and the employee by basically elaborating and adding article or clause 41 to the regulations of the labor law. So basically, we've introduced a higher flexibility and a better menu of options between the employer and the employee when they are forcing a force majeure situation. And basically, we've introduced 3 options. The first is basically the consumption of the annual leaves. The second is agreeing the mutual agreement on an unpaid leave between the employer and the worker. And thirdly is the matching of the matching of the wage with the hours worked. Basically, all of these options should be exhausted before an employer has to resort to laying off people. So that to us is a very important addition to the labor law. Next, please. Also here we have a couple of waiving of suspensions or actually lifting of suspensions relating to wage protection programs for the months of January and February. Next. We also have the temporary lifting of suspension for private sector entities whose registered activities are not matching their actual commercial activities. Next, please. Also, the lifting of suspension of services due to non-payment of fines. This is happening in appreciation of the economic hardships that some establishments may face. So we're lifting the suspension of the e-services offered to some of these establishments. Next. Another wave of suspending labor recruitment-related penalties. And more on that can be found out by visiting the Musanid portal. Next, please. The continuity of services, and this is something my colleague Abdurrahman mentioned earlier, the continuity of services around the clock to elite customers. And basically, elite customers are the entities that are maintaining a platinum band in nitaqat for a period of 1 year and whose Saudi employees are over 250 employees. And what we're doing here is basically offering them around the clock support and service for their human capital related inquiries and needs. The number of beneficiaries from the service is almost 630 companies. Next, please. Also, another initiative is the allowance of transfer of service and transfer between branches and issuance of visas for different entities. Next, please. The allowing of expatriates to depart to their respective countries. This is a major initiative that has been undertaken with the leadership of the ministry, in addition to the support, the great support of the of other ministries in the ecosystem, namely the Ministry of Interior and other agencies, and also GACA, the Aviation Authority. And what we're trying to basically do is secure flights back home to some of these workers who are agreeing with their employers to basically go on their leaves during these times. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. That was great. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Mr. Sami Al-Fallaj from the Technical and Vocational Training Corporation, or known as TVTC, who is the General Director of Private Training. Mr. Sami, the floor is yours. I believe we are having some technical difficulties. So,
can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello. I was going to read your slide, but you are the owner, so I prefer that you do it, sir. The floor is yours.
So I'll start again. I'm sorry for that. I'm very honored to be with you guys, and I would like to welcome you. I welcome all the audience. And due to these circumstances, I'm sure that you will forgive my shaggy look. And for you, Mr. Abdurrahman, you will not do a hard work with me. It's only one slide. Actually, in private training, we do not deal with the human resources directly, but we provide services to training facilities in order to develop the human resources. So our target is the facility of trainings and to reduce the effects of COVID-19 on private sectors. TVTC has made a few steps that, inshallah, will make things easier to the investors. So we start with the first one is that training facilities are allowed now to set up training programs, and with the choice actually to select any appropriate platform that help them to provide their training. And also for the new investors to have to establish a new facility, training facility, the license is fully automated. And for those our old partners, to renew the license, they can get also automated. It's fully automated. We also, the TVTC made the request for the training license more reliable, and the usual requirements has been reduced. And for them who are starting the new programs, they can register all the programs online. We also, as you can see, this list showing that approving short courses has become also fully automated, and the request to add e-training, which was not allowed before the circumstances of COVID-19, it becomes also automated and for free. And the TVTC in supporting training facilities that offer short courses for free, provide them with the license, with the certificates also for free. And the online registration has been developed actually, so they can use it with the diploma and the long-term courses. It usually has to be worked manually and bringing so many papers and requests in order to register the trainees. And also the TVTC has given the ability to the facilities to make changes on the duration of the short courses. Actually, short courses has been produced and given throughout an e-training. And this is a new techniques. It differs than a physical training that we used to. So they have to shorten sometimes the hours, sitting in front of a device for 5 hours or 4 hours, making the trainees run away from the course. So we need to attract them actually. And so we give them the ability to reduce the time, but not to influence the content of the course itself. We also design in TVTC a special Excel file that helps the facilities training to register a large amount of trainees, and the system will read this registration instead of the usual way that the facilities have to register every trainee individually. Last but not least, this is for the facilities. Because we used to work in an old way with papers, actually. So the investor has to attend the department. Now they are dealing with the system, and to be aware of any clashes, we allow the investors, whenever they have any difficulties with the requirements on the system, they can attach it with an email and send it to the department, and we will deal with it. And for the, actually, this is the only thing that can be given to the human resources, and which is they can print their certificates automatically. They can get it through the email. They don't need any more papers for that. We are trying to open all the sources that we can, that help us to connect and to communicate with all the investors to ease their job, inshallah, and to help them to pass these challenges with the COVID-19. Finally, all of these tips has been done, will be studied, inshallah, after the coronavirus to start a new era, inshallah, in private training. And wish you all the best. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sami. That was very, very insightful. And yes, hopefully after COVID-19, I'm sure everybody is going to be, like they say, up their game when it comes to whatever initiative or incentives that they have in order to support not only the investor, but also support our brothers and sisters at all the governmental entities. Now I am going to introduce the Executive Director of Investor Business Solution, Mr. Majid Asadi, who's going to be covering a few important aspects of the ministry, the NCRC and the Investor Business Solution and the ease of doing business. Mr. Majid, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Abdurrahman, and all the panelists here for your contribution. And I hope that I have enough time to present what I'm going to talk about here. Basically, I want to touch base on what is the NCRC. His Excellency, the Minister of Investment, Khalid Al-Falih, sensed the importance to be much closer to the investor in this situation. So he decided to establish a response center to be the backbone that supports the business sector. NCRC collaborate with a representative within the Ministry of Investment and from a different government agency seeking to enhance the investor confidence and solve all of their challenges and ensure the continuity of their business. Next, please. How we structured the center. To achieve the expected level of customer satisfaction, it was important to keep an open communication between the customer and every government entities, taking into consideration the current situation. We studied, in general, the client need in this period and divide our team to main three steps. One is the communication. Communication means how we can connect and how we can receive calls and inquiries from the customer. And the team work around the clock, 24 hours, to contact customer using all channels, whether by phone, through email, text, or text messaging even, to make sure that our customers are working fine. In addition, we have added more communication channels such as WhatsApp, Twitter, and other communication to receive issues and inquiries and to make sure that we are covering the customer communication and receive their complaint if they have. The second, as you can see, which is a team where they're focusing on the internal issues. So this is the internal. Another working group is to deal with the challenges facing the investor relating to procedure within the Ministry of Investment and Ministry Business Center, also to fix any technical issue if things appear. The third, which is called the external, finally, this group is dedicated for issues that facing the investor outside the ministry, and for that even we have another 3 sub-teams. One is to respond to the temporary procedure that were issued and also how to implement, and this is, I think, Abdurrahman is fully taken care of. Financial incentives that recently approved and how you can get a benefit out of it. Third, the challenges facing the investor currently. More than 35 governments, agencies who have a direct relation with the investor, and we have an SLA for resolving those challenges and monitored by our. Fourth, and the final stage is the escalation. So to make sure that we are a solving center, there is a direct escalation to make sure that we resolve it quickly as we can. Second, please, next. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the most important element in this period is to provide information. So our working team keep collecting all the new and temporary procedure to publish it to our website, along with a common question in addition to the stimulus package. And of course, these like questions which been raised today, and every time we have get question, we're gonna put it and publish it on the website so it can be available. And even this workshop will be recorded so it can be as a reference to our investor to come back whenever he have a problem and issues. Next. If you don't mind, in this slide we're gonna show you a high level of our achievement related to challenges outside the ministry. We have received until now, from March until now, 263 cases, 85 inquiry, 118 cases, and 60 incentives. In addition, we also get 46 cases that not related to the pandemic, but because our main job in the ministry is to solve challenges, so we have handed it to our concerned team, and it will be explained in the next slides. As a conclusion, in total, until now, we get 300 cases. Sorry, again, Abdurrahman. We solved 225 cases and 38 remaining. Sorry, it's not 38. It's as of today, we only have remaining 15. So, and this table will show you the full detail how we're solving and which cases are remaining, which is inshallah by end of tomorrow. We hope for that it will be done. Next, please. It's worth to so it's worth to mention here about our response center was established and activated very quickly due to the main reason that the center team is almost the same as the team who's managing the investment business solution department in the ministry. IBS aim mainly to solve the challenges of investor, but it become clear to us in some cases that the challenge is related to a lack of policy or regulation that may require amending it. All of these efforts to reach customer satisfaction and implement business improvement to achieve the goals of Vision 2030, which is aimed to involve the private sector to be to contribute increasing our GDP. We believe that improvement can be only done if we look into things from the ground. The investor business solution, the next please. The investor business solution department seek to unify the channels of receiving procedural cases so that we can provide solution of various kind of issues or raise them to the relevant authorities if the matter is related to policy or regulation. As a result, we seek to implement sustainable solution to improve the business environment. Next. From this point, when we are on the ground and we are solving things and issues that regarding procedure, it is important to give you a brief about the national competitive centers who work to improve the business environment by amending the regulation. And as I mentioned, that IBS considered one of the main resources to the center. The center include a large number, the next please. The center includes a large number of government agency and reporting to the government center. In the next, here we will find some example of what have been achieved by the center. As for improving procedure, you will find here some facts. Removing barriers women mobility, implementation of anti-discrimination policy and access to credit, equality of opportunity at all stages of employment, protection against dismissal during the pregnancy, expert law of pension credit, open new professional career women, grant women, and the right. This is one of the key achievements that we have achieved in 2019. Next, please. Finally, in this slide, there is some example of procedure that been happened in that 2019. In reduction of license approval, it was 3 days, but because of the center, we have reduced it to 3 hours. Reduction in requiring custom document, it was almost 9 documents. it's been minimum to 2, import 12 and 2, and the list will go on. Finally, in this slide, the final slide, Abdurrahman, you'll see some example of the Kingdom ranking in terms of a global indicator. For example, in the World Bank, we are rated number 62. So the place rank, sorry, in the 30th place when we say of the ease of doing business. And also in the World Bank, Women, Business and Law, we have achieved the first in GCC. The next, please. Also in the World Economic Forum, we've been in 39 and now in the 36, and also World Competitive York Book, we are on the 7th. So this is how we are improving. This is how the government are trying to reach, inshallah, very soon in the first 10 or 20 level of ranking of ease of doing business, and we're working hard to do that. I thank everyone for attending, and I hope that we will succeed in reaching the investor satisfaction. Thank you, Abdurrahman.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful, and I repeat to all the viewers and listeners that all this information will be available, and also we are always here to answer any question, any information that you might have from the Ministry of Investment or from our brothers from all the other speakers. So now we are getting into the segment of the Q&A. So we have received a couple of questions, and I will begin my question to the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development. Mr. Ahmed, it was very impressive what we have seen about the incentives being offered to the private sector. Now, quick question. Any incentives do apply to foreign companies here in the Kingdom? And if you can just highlight any success that you've had in doing so. Thank you.
So thank you, Abdurrahman. Thank you, everyone. Basically, as a design principle, we're not in the Ministry of Human Resources, we're not distinguishing between foreign investments or local investments. To us, they're all equal. We treat them with the same care. We treat them with the same attention and attention to detail. And our interest is again basically balancing the needs and the requirements of both sides, the employer and the employee. So everything that we're doing is available to all investors. The second thing, we have been receiving calls and support requests from foreign investments that are operational in the country, and we've been giving them all the support that they require. We do know of some cases that are actually benefiting from some of the initiatives that we've launched, and basically, we're nationality agnostic. We treat all investors with the same care and diligence.
That's wonderful, and that's very reassuring, to be honest. And thank you very much. Our next question goes to TVTC, Mr. Sami. I loved how clear and transparent you were towards the incentives that were available, and it was very enjoyable to hear about the e-training that you mentioned earlier. That there are free certification and free registration and so forth. Can you please tell us how to register when it comes to these training programs?
For the trainees, they can find the link that they can use to fulfill the needs. They are usually asked for their names, their ID numbers, and what programs they are heading to. It's very easy. I'm very honest with you, all of you guys. It's a new experiment. It's not something that we are accustomed with. We still swimming in this experiment, and inshallah, all the things that we have just registered till now, so we assume that it's a good signs, inshallah, for the new future, inshallah.
Inshallah. Wonderful. Okay, so my next question is for the for HRDF, Mr. Ahmed Jayish. My question to you is, what is the mechanism to apply for the employment support program?
As we said maybe earlier, need to make it more clear, that is for the establishment needs to go to Taqat.sa. Taqat.sa is a website for the employment or for the national labor market gateway. So they have the established, it will have either it's already there as a part of NLG, or it has to register as a new beneficiary. Then they can access Taqat.sa through Ministry of HR, Ministry of Human Resources website. After accessing the NLG, they need to establish a file. This file will contain the identity information. They need to check if it is the right information, and then they can go to the employment support program and open a file there electronically and start adding and applying for the employment support by only adding the name of the employee. And the system will tell the company if this employee is eligible for the subsidy or not. But before that, the employee himself needs to register in Taqat as well, Taqat.sa as well, just to verify his personal information. Then after the employer or the establishment file this subsidy, so the system will accept it and will require the establishment also to agree and approve the conditions, and also provide us with the IBAN, so we can at the end of the month we can wire and send the subsidy.
Clear. Thank you very much. Okay, so our next question is going to be going towards the General Organization Social Insurance, GOSI. Mr. Ibrahim, this question is for you. So this question is, can an employer can employees keep working during the compensation period? And if not, and if yes, how?
Okay, it was known that they cannot work, or they're not required to work. However, yesterday the special committee issued a new policy with the agreement of both parties, and some extra compensation from the employer. An employee can work during these times.
Very good. And last question, and this is something I probably get mixed up a lot about. So the compensation is 60% that is given by the government, correct? And most questions that people ask is do they have to pay the 40%?
Actually, if they're not doing extra work for the establishment, or not doing any work, they don't have to pay the extra 40%. However, as I said before, they can work, they can get to an agreement, and for an extra bit of money, they could also do some work during the time they compensated for.
Very good. Clear. Thank you very much. Okay, and this question is going towards Mr. Majid Asadi, the Chief Executive from the Investor Business Solution. This question is basically, how does the Investor Business Solution operate, and what kind of, let's say, benchmark or success story that you have that you can let our lovely audiences understand or get a certain taste, if you will, of how this is being done when it comes to tackling obstacles and issues being faced with any problems regarding regulations or any certain obstacles.
Okay, thank you so much. So in whether it's an NCRC or the response center or as IBS, we treat almost on the same methodology. The moment that we receive a case, I think we identify and we validate the information and the concern by contacting with the government entities. The government entity will always are welcome to listen to those issues and the problem, and we try to identify whether it's a procedure that missing or lack of knowing, understanding the procedure from the investor, or it's a delay of processing this kind of, let's say, challenges, or if it's a regulation or policy. If it's a policy or regulation, then we have an internal entity within the Ministry of Investment where they take care of this kind of changing policy if it is on the favor of the investors and aligning with, let's say, the standard regulation in the country. If it's a regulation, then it will take the other path. However, while we are with the government entities, there are a highly direction from the government that we need to make sure we ease of doing business, and to make sure to we set aside the investor to make sure that they are doing their business, let's say, in a safely journey. One of the examples that happened during this period, one of the customers, they are a market, and they have a continuous, like said, packages where it comes from the country, but the quantity was not as big to use a cargo plane. And we contacted Saudi Airline, who was really helpful on assigning even a passenger flight to use it as a cargo. So this is making a solution and go away from just following the book into finding an out-of-the-box solution to make sure that we're fulfilling our customer need on time. This is one of the things that I think we can work to mention, and we have a lot actually.
That is wonderful and very very superb. I believe we have extended our time today. I would like to thank all our lovely panelists. Everyone was very informative and very, very clear in their incentives. And I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone and to all our lovely listeners, and to give you a call of action where you can get in touch with us through our phone numbers. We have our phone numbers on screen now, through the WhatsApp as well, email, and also social media. And we are more than happy to support you, whether it's an inquiry, an obstacle, or just to direct you to the proper direction. Thank you very much, everyone. I bid you all a lovely, lovely day, a wonderful weekend, and looking forward to seeing everyone to the next series of the webinars that we're going to be doing. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.